Doctor Who came back on air in 2005 after 15 years, near around, being off telly, and this Doctor Who reboot kicked back up the iconic series with Series 1. This show is about a Time Lord who has the power to save himself from death by regenerating, called the Doctor, who travels through time and space in his police box called the TARDIS, normally with a female companion, and the Doctor comes across some of the worst monsters and aliens in his adventures, which he must stop to keep the universe safe. This series includes the likes of Christopher Eccleston, and plays the Doctor within this series, becoming the 9th Doctor in the process, and Billie Piper, who plays the Doctor's new companion, Rose. So what I liked about the first season of Doctor Who reboot is that it was able to capture everything that Doctor Who Classic managed to achieve in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s with the movie, as Russel T Davis helped bring a modern day version of Doctor Who to the television back in 2005, and was able to replicate everything that the original one did, however give a twist to it, like I mentioned, with the modern day twisters. There was a lot of different things happening, and it felt more realistic, as it was more, real, it felt. I also thought the stories and the adventures in this Doctor Who series were fantastic, and the Doctor, played by Eccleston, was portrayed fantastically, as he was able to bring the idea of a guy that's just fought in a brutal war called the Time War, and he's got kind of PTSD in that sense, and is a bit shell-shook in the way that he hasn't had a companion since the Time War, and needs somebody to, because he's always like on his feet, like, where he's got this hard edge to him, but he doesn't want any more people to die, sort of thing, if that makes sense. And in a sense, he feels quite lonely as well. As this Time War killed the rest of the Time Lords off, along with most of the Daleks, so he thinks, and he has to cope with this, walking around, and has to basically put a smile on for anybody he sees, and he doesn't really like to talk about the fact that he's the only one left as the lonely Time Lord. I also felt that the stories helped bond the Doctor and Rose together, as the likes of Father's Day and the likes of the Doctor Dancers and Empty Child really helped bond these two together, as really good, like, they would bounce off of each quite well, had very good chemistry. I wouldn't say they had as much as good chemistry as the likes of David Tennant and Billie Piper did, but they had good chemistry between Billie Piper and Eccleston on screen, and you could tell. And these episodes really show that, especially Father's Day, which is my favourite episode in this entire series, as this was able to do something that we all would like to do. Go back to a time where you either wanted something to change or you would like to change something. However, this episode, she wanted to change the fact that her father died when she was younger and wanted him to live. However, after several attempts to try to be with her father, because she knew he was alone, she actually saved him, and in fact caused a paradox, because there were several different versions of the Doctor and Rose there, and this fucked up everything, in which I want to go into more depth in maybe a separate review on just that episode, because I love this episode. And really, it shows you that even though you would like to go back and fix things, some things are meant to happen. Also, I thought that going back to the likes of Dr. Dancers and The Empty Child, it also brought in the likes of John Barrowman into this World War II Blitz atmosphere, which was epic, by the way, these two episodes. And clearly Stephen Moffat's best work, as he wrote these two episodes, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant to watch, brilliant to see, and I'm really into my World War II, and this really appealed, but it weren't my favourite, I must admit. As a kid, I always loved Father's Day. I also liked how the good cast was able to pull off this series fantastically, as you had the likes of Christopher Eccleston, Billie Piper, Noel Clarke as the Doctor, Rose and Mickey Smith, as it had great chemistry throughout. However, their most notable episodes are probably the likes of Parting of the Ways, in which is the Doctor's, which is Christopher Eccleston's last episode, and also the Saladin episodes, in which I felt that they portrayed the characters, these three, very well, as I love the connections between the Doctor and Mickey, as they technically hated each other. As, especially in the first episode, the meeting, Rose, he thinks he's a bit of an idiot, Mickey, and doesn't really treat him with any sort of respect, and always calls him Ricky, which is hilarious. But I also think that even though they hated each other, because he felt that Mickey always felt that the Doctor took Rose away from him, as Rose and Mickey were boyfriend and girlfriend before he met the Doctor, and the Doctor took Rose with him travelling, and Mickey was there to sit there holding his unit, basically not knowing what to do with his life. However, in the Slitheen episodes, Mickey was able to help the Doctor out by hacking into the systems and launching missiles to help save the Doctor and Rose and others. And it seemed that the respect for Mickey went up a level. Even though they hated each other, they still managed to come together for these episodes. Furthermore, the special guests in the series were also fantastic, as you had the likes of Simon Pegg, Shaun Dingwall, Camille Coudari, John Barrowman, Zoe Wannamaker, Annetta Badland as well. These all came together quite as guest appearances, mostly playing the bad guys, but the likes of Camille and Shaun Dingwall were in the episode Father's Day, and they did pretty good in there as well. And Camille's all the way through this series, Series 1, Series 2, and I think that's where she goes, and then I think she comes back in Series 4, but she's a growing on character, but in this series she isn't really a big part at all. And Shaun Dingwall plays the father of Rose in Father's Day. He comes back in Series 2 also, so we'll be expecting to talk about him a little bit more. Also, moving on to the final thing really, is that I loved how they foreshadowed the ending. The bad wolf thing, all the way through the series, was planted all the way around for little clues of what that could be, because the Doctor explains it as a bit of a coincidence. He doesn't really see much in it. But however, Bad Wolf represents the time when Rose opens the TARDIS and looks into the heart of the TARDIS and basically takes him back to the Doctor, because the Doctor sends her away in the final episode to save her from the Daleks coming up and basically killing them. However, she returns with the TARDIS, flings open the door and turns all the Daleks into dust with her mind, as she is the heart of the TARDIS and becomes the TARDIS. And basically she scatters these words all the way around in the Ninth Doctor's timeline and through the Doctor's timeline to basically say this is what's going to happen. And it's basically like the writing's on the wall basically for him to regenerate and for Rose to meet back up with the Ninth Doctor, as it's always a path for Rose to meet back up with the Doctor sort of thing, in which is a really, really cool thing, and it is explained mostly in the part of the ways better than I've just explained it there. But although it is a real shame, however, that this is Christopher Eccleston's last season, and as he's taken in the heart of the TARDIS away from Rose after the kiss, and he then starts regenerating and turns into David Tennant, leaving this series to be Eccleston's only ever series, in which we're going to get into why that's a bad thing later on. But honestly, you couldn't have asked for a better series for him, and he can say that he started off this reboot and nobody else could have done it better than he did. However, not everything in the series smelt of roses, as there was no pun intended, that is, as there was a big hint of shit in this series, as I felt the episode The Unquieted Dead was really, really poor and is one of the worst Doctor episodes I have ever seen, and is clearly one of the weakest ones. People turned around and said the longest game is, or the long game. However, I disagree. I think The Unquieted Dead is unwatchable and is a complete mess, which is like the third episode into this series, and it's a real shame why it's even in here. I don't get why it was made. Anyways, but that really puts a damper on the series for me. But other than that, the rest of the series is fucking solid. So if you take that one out and ignore it, which when I normally watch it and when my brother normally watches, we tend to miss out that episode as it's completely and utterly crap. Another thing that I didn't really like is how this was Eccleston's last season. And I know it's not really dampening on this season. However, I think he could have done like 10 more seasons. I know that's being ridiculous. 10 more seasons and still be enjoyable. As Eccleston, honestly, his Doctor was so unique. So unique, and I loved every second of watching him perform with the likes of Billie Piper and with all these villains. It was a real shame to see, you know, still cry to this day when he regenerated. To summarise this series, this is one hell of an iconic series, and for me, one that I will never forget, as it helps reboot the Doctor Who series fantastically, and nobody else could have done it better, like Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper. And I just think this was fantastic. This was untouchable in terms of the first series of any TV show. I think it's one of the better ones, hence why I rate this legendary series and a 9 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments down below whether you agree or disagree with anything I've said. Also, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to be alerted to all the new content this channel creates, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Later.